Sure. I mean, I'll just pick up there as well by saying, one of the threads that I heard in your question, Justin, is it's never been this bad before. Like we've never been so competitive. Maybe it's just a lost cause. We've gone too far down that road, right? And I totally understand that sentiment. However, what I want to just flag is, part of my job on this book was to really dig into what life was like in the Gilded Age. Before the Progressive Era happened, and I was stunned at how similar the experience that people described, this relentless sort of rush to get ahead and the relentless competition, and that as what society had become oriented around, right? And so that is not a new thing. I think it's a feature of this I oriented cultural orientation that we have found ourselves, that we've created essentially. So if we've created it, we can uncreate it, right? And that's where the question of agency comes in. The Progressive Era, anyone who's looked at our book will know that the last chapter of our book is titled Drift and Mastery. And we took that title actually from a famous Progressive Era tract of the same name, for Drift and Mastery, by Walter Lippmann. It was written in 1914. And the basic premise of that book is we have a choice. We can either drift along with history, sort of with this mindset that we don't have any control over the environment in which we find ourselves in, or we can engage in mastery. We can grab the reins of history and say, the tide in which I'm swimming is not working for me, and I'm going to stem the tide. And that's really what the progressives did. That was what Walter Lippmann was calling upon people to do. And I would say we actually are beginning to see that. The millennials, for example, that I've recruited and employed, in my nonprofit work, they were incredibly purpose driven, as well as being, I think that there's a mindset of like, I have to compete and I have to succeed, but there's a hunger underneath it for something more. And I think the more that young people can lean into that hunger and demand an economy that is more oriented around purpose and more oriented around what we can do for one another, the more we're going to see that shift. And that's a brave choice. I mean, I graduated from college in the heyday of Bain and Company and McKinsey recruiting all the best minds in America right into, iBanking and consulting. And it was a really hard thing to resist that and go into nonprofit work, which is what I did. But the more people that will do that, the more the society will reorient itself in that way. That's the only truth of this book, is that there's no inevitability to whether we plunge further down this darkening path or whether we pull it up and reverse it into an upswing. It has everything to do with the choices that we make collectively and whether we can get critical mass pulling the society in a different direction.